Morning all, thank you for checking out my video today. This is a beginner's guide to memory bears. It's not a sew along video, so if you're looking for a sew along, I'm not going to be doing that today. I'm hoping to do a video actually constructing a bear another day, so if you keep watching me, hopefully you'll be able to catch that if it's of help. This video I'm just going to talk about planning, what you need, and mistakes I've learned along the way as a complete beginner of memory bears. There's lots of things I didn't know that I've picked up as I've gone along, so I'm going to share those with you all today and hopefully you'll find that helpful. The pattern that I use is by Funky Friends Factory, the Melody Memory Bear. So as I'm talking, I'll probably refer back to this pattern specifically, but some of what I've talked about will probably relate to any memory bear, but this is the one that I use. The reason that I use this one is because it was recommended to me by lots of other sewers. I don't think it's Funky Friends beginner's bear. They do make a beginner's bear, but I am a total beginner and I've managed to do it, so I'm sure you will too. Patterns are really well written and there's step-by-step instructions of how to construct your bear, so it's a really good pattern. I would definitely recommend them. You can buy it in PDF or printed, which is what I got. If you check them out online, they've got a website and Facebook groups. They do lots of other patterns, more bears and lots of different animals, and they're really cute, and the patterns are really sort of beginner friendly. They take you through step by step what you need to do, so I definitely would recommend Funky Friends Factory for patterns if you're new to making toys. If you've made lots of stuffed animals before and you're a pro, this video is probably not going to be too helpful for you. I'm talking about making the bears through my eyes as a beginner and what I've learned. I'm going to talk through what the bear is made up of, because when I first looked at the pieces, I couldn't get my head around what piece was what and how it would look when it was finished. So this is the first bear that I made using my boys' newborn vests and sleep suits. Talk some more about that in a moment. I'll just go through what the pattern pieces are. So some of it is probably self-explanatory, maybe it wasn't to me, but you have two tummy pieces that go from under the neck all the way around to the back. You have your outer arm, your inner arm, outer leg, inner leg, foot pads, your 4 ear pieces. You have your face pieces, which include a marking for the eye, so make sure you record where the eye should be marked, forehead, back head, and 2 side heads. You can see my seams, that all looks a bit wonky there, but this was my first attempt and it is stretch fabric, so overall, once I'd done this, I was pretty pleased with him. I've used a felt nose, which I think they recommend in the pattern. I'm going to stick with using felt for all my bears because it doesn't fray and it's pretty easy to sew on. You can do your nose, you could embroider a nose, you could make a nose out of fabric, or they do plastic noses similar to these safety eyes. So it's open to interpretation to how you do the nose. I think in the pattern it's recommended that you use a felt nose like I have. I'll just talk about what fabric I used. So I used, I think it was 8 newborn baby grows and sleep suits, and until I started trying to trace my pattern pieces out, I hadn't realised I didn't quite have enough fabric. I had to add on a plain sleep suit for the foot pad because I think I ran out there. Newborn items are actually really small for some of the pattern pieces. You can of course sew fabric together to make a bigger piece of fabric, but for the finish of the bear it kind of looks nice if, you know, these pieces are all one piece, right, rather than if you sewed it together and you could see a seam. So for example, the back, that's one of the back pieces. It's actually quite large and I couldn't fit that onto a newborn vest. I had to cut a sleep suit down the side and down the leg and open it up so I had wide enough piece of fabric wide enough and tall enough to fit this pattern piece on. So just be mindful when you're planning your bear and prepping it. It's best to have too many pieces of clothing because you can always not use it all or use it for another project if you have too much, whereas it's quite tricky if you start designing your bear and start cutting it out and then you realise you don't have enough of the fabric that you wanted. So this is the second bear that I made. I made this using baby clothes that I purchased from a charity shop. Learned a few things on this. One, I'm not sure if I used the wrong type of interfacing, and I don't know if it's when I constructed her or when I stuffed her, but I seem to have stretched her quite a lot, her face, and it also seems a bit fat and she's kind of pulled out, and I don't think she looks as good. She hasn't got the natural triangular shape this one has. She's sort of gone a bit podgy, which wasn't intentional, but I guess that's all part of the learning curve of making these. For this one, I think I've used 8mm eyes on a bear this size. They are 12 inches from the bum to the head sitting. I don't think an 8mm eye is quite large enough. I use these craft eyes. I think they're called safety eyes. You can get them on Amazon, and they usually come in packs of different sizes, so if you're making different size toys, you've got a selection of sizes there. The one that I prefer and I'm going to use for this size bear is the 12mm. 10mm looks okay, but I think 12mm is the bigger eye, and I think for this bear it looks much better. They come with a little pack of washers. It's a shame the washers don't go in the same handy little tub. So when you're marking up your interface, the face piece has an indication of where the eye is, so make sure you mark the eye on your interfacing so that when you come to put the eye in, you know already where it's going to be. These little clamps, once you clamp them on, there's no going back, so just be really careful when you're doing your eye. Before you cut your hole for your eye, make sure you've definitely got them both positioned in the right place. Make a little hole, push your eye through. That's what I've taken out to show you. Push your eye through, push really hard, a little clamp on the back, and the idea is then, I think that they're called safety eyes, so presumably it meant if you pull them, they're not going to come off. Obviously I've never tried, and I don't make bears as toys for children anyway, so I always advertise mine that they're not toys. So just be careful that you're using the right safety stuff if you need to. So that was her. Something else I don't particularly like on her, I used fabric I bought from a charity shop. The pink fabric I've used for the outer leg and the face, I didn't realise at the time, but it's kind of really well worn and faded. It's only a practice bear for my benefit, so it doesn't matter. But I think if you are making a bear out of clothing, of baby clothes or loved one clothes, the better quality the clothing is, the better the bear is going to look. So make sure you're using really nice quality, clean fabric to make your bear. So that's her. Just put her to the side. So once I'd made my two bears out of baby clothing, I started to post photos of them on Facebook to see if I got any inquiries. I was quite surprised that all the inquiries that I got were not for baby clothes, which is what I thought memory bears were for. It was for loved ones' clothes. So I thought I would try and make a bear using adults' clothing. So this bear is made from a lady's shirt and a denim skirt. I actually ran out of denim skirt because I only had half a denim mini skirt left over in my stash. So I took some denim from some jeans that I also have upstairs in my stash because I also make tote bags using old jeans, so I do a bit of upcycling as well as making memory bears. So I had plenty of denim to play with. I think denim looks quite well on the bear. Now I look at him, I think maybe the foot pads would look better if they were denim to sort of contrast with the face. He looks a bit too heavy on the shirt fabric. I wanted to do a bear with just 2 types of fabric to see what it looks like and what contrast you can get. I also cut off the collar to make a detachable collar, which I've mislaid. So that's an option if you're using a shirt. And I cut off the, I'm not sure what this is called, but the panel down the front of the shirt with the buttons on. I cut that off, and after I made the front piece of the bear, I just sewed that on before I put him all together. So when you're cutting up your clothes, think about what you want to save. Do you want to save shirt collars, cuffs? Do you want to save the button panels? Think about your pattern placement. Because I wanted to save my craft eyes for bears that I sell to people, I have just sewn on buttons for the eyes, which I took from the shirt that I used. So that's another option if you don't want to buy craft eyes. I forgot what the darts were called for a moment then. I'm not sure if I made a mistake, but the darts on the face haven't quite sat right, and I'm not sure if that's because it's in denim, which is a thick material, or if I don't know if I didn't do them right. So I think if I do a denim face again, I'm going to be really careful about the darts down the face, because they kind of pokey. They're all a bit, they don't quite look right. I tried to sort of stuff in them more, but it didn't really work. So I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Okay, so that's him. I put the pocket on the back piece there. The pocket didn't fit on the tummy piece, although you could remove it and sew it on, or you could make a little smaller pocket if you wanted a pocket there. This is just for myself, so it's not for anyone else, so it didn't have to be perfect. It's just I was more playing around with the fabrics and experimenting with the look of the bear. So that's him. The next bear I've made is using boys aged 5 clothes. This is 2 shirts. You can't see him very well because it's dark because he's navy blue. 2 boys shirts aged 5 and a jumper aged 5. I wanted to do this out of just 2 fabrics, out of the jumper and the checked shirt, but a boy's shirt of age 5 is quite small and it was a short sleeve shirt. So there just wasn't enough fabric, so I've used that. I also had a denim shirt. That's a really thin denim. It's probably not in denim actually, but it's just navy blue to look like denim. So I did that in the legs because I ran out of the shirt fabric. This one, I tried to stitch on the nose slightly differently. I tried to use embroidery thread because I've seen someone else do that on their photos online. Didn't work for me. I think I was using the wrong needle. My embroidery needle has a really thick blunt head and I couldn't jab it through the felt very easily, so it's kind of pulling and distorting it as I was doing it. So I will stick to just sewing on my felt nose with a normal needle and thread. I'm not going to try and do anything clever like embroidery. You may notice that my bears don't have a smiley face. I think in the pattern it shows you how to stitch a little bit of the nose down there and a little smiley face. I haven't done that on any of my bears because I think they look quite nice and have a bit of character without them. If somebody asked me to stitch a face on, I could, but personally, I think for my bears, I'm going to stick to not adding a smiley face. I also tried to add the collar. This is a sewn-in collar. So when you construct the bear and you attach the head to the neck, I had to put this collar between the layers. This was way too difficult for me. This shirt fabric was really badly fraying, so it was really difficult to pin it accurately and sew it accurately, so that didn't go very well. I have found another method of a detached shirt that I'm going to use next time, so that'll be another experiment of how I want to do the detached shirt. So hopefully if that works, then that'll be the method that I use. This is too complicated, and also I don't think I've positioned it quite right because it keeps kind of flicking up. I mean, you could probably iron it and starch it and it would stay down a bit, but it kind of keeps pinging up. And this is a like really casual shirt material. It might be better if it was stiff. I suppose you could make your own collar and interface it and make it stiff if you wanted to, but this is the actual collar that was taken from the shirt, the boy's shirt. Something else, I made a bit of a mistake on this bear, which you need to think about, is which thread you use. I use this kind of creamy colour beige thread, and I have this in my sewing machine all the time. I think it's made by Hemline. It's not expensive. Don't think it's cotton. And I find this is a really good colour because when I'm making my tote bags, it kind of matches all sorts of fabric, whereas I find white sometimes stands out too much, whereas this beige matches everything. And I don't know why, but this thread I find when I'm top stitching finishes really well. I've tried using more expensive cotton threads and I just don't get on as well with them. So what I was going to say about the thread was I use this beige thread. So Merrily went and made this a blue bear using beige thread, and some of the seams, the light's not very good here, I think you can probably just see, I mean that could be that the tension is wrong in the sewing machine, but you can just see. If I'd use navy blue thread or even maybe black thread, you probably wouldn't see that. I think I've tidied it up, but I could see some of it around the foot pad. I could see you can probably see, I think you can see a little bit there where I went a bit wrong. So if that thread was blue, you wouldn't even notice that and it wouldn't matter. So I'm gonna buy maybe some of this, depending on the colours of the fabric I receive for the orders I've got on the go at the moment. I'll probably buy maybe a few, maybe blue might be a good colour. I've already got this in red and green. I like the colours they do. So I think that's Hemline. While I'm talking about his foot pad, I'll just mention when I make the bears, I thought sewing around in a circle was easy. Inserting the foot pad on all the bears I've done has been by far the most difficult piece of the pattern. I've had to do them several times. I don't know if I'm not using enough pins. I just find the outer fabric seems to get tucked. I mean, there might even be a little bit of tucking there. I'm not sure you can see. I mean, this bear looks fine, like you probably wouldn't notice, but I did sew one of these foot pads about 3 times to get it right. Not sure if I'm doing something wrong. Anyone's got any tips on inserting foot pads? Let me know, because I find that piece really difficult. So that's the 4 bears that I made initially as my practice bears before I started doing orders for customers. The wadding that I've used for these bears is just like cheap upholstery wadding, because which I already had in my stash. I didn't want to spend out on, toy stuffing when I'm just practicing. The toy stuffing that I have got comes in, I think I bought this from Dunelm Mill. It comes in 200-gram bags. It meets the safety regulations that it should, I think, for fire safety. There's more in this bag than it looks. They kind of stuff it in quite well and take the air out. This, for me, is probably not quite enough to do one bear, because I want my bears to be pretty well stuffed, because if you stuff like the legs really, really well, it takes out any creases and it just looks better if they're well stuffed. So I would probably use a bag and possibly a bit for one bear. So make sure you've got plenty of stuffing. Shop around for stuffing. Like I say, I bought them in these individual 200-gram bags. It's probably cheaper to buy stuffing in bulk if you're making lots of bears. I haven't had a chance to shop around and look for stuffing yet. I've just bought this because it's recommended to me, and yeah, I got it from Dunelm Mill, so easy to find. For your bear, depending on what fabric you use, you don't have to use interfacing. However, I think you probably should always use interfacing. Definitely if you're making a bear for somebody else. If you're using stretch fabrics like this, it helps to stabilise the fabric. If you made something like this without stabiliser, interfacing, it would stretch all over the place, and then it would be very difficult to actually construct the bear because the seams wouldn't line up. Like I say, it depends what fabric you're using, but personally I would interface all the fabric, and I think you get a much better overall finish of your bear if you do that. There's loads of different types of interfacing you can use. It's a bit of a minefield. You might want to shop around and get some sample pieces to test. From the research I have done, the most recommended for memory bears is 100% cotton, 100% woven cotton interfacing. It can be quite expensive. You have to shop around. You can get it on Amazon and wherever. I would just say I've got here some Vilene G700. I haven't tried this yet, but this is woven cotton interfacing. It's just really soft and nice, and you can just tell, if you've only ever used the cheap interfacing, you can tell this is like totally different, and it is going to give the overall finish of your bear. It's just going to look so much better if you use that. I've got, for my next practice bear that I'm going to do out of a man's shirt, I have bought this cheap interfacing. You can hear it scrunchy. This is the non-woven, not cotton interfacing. I don't know if you can see the shine. If you've never used interfacing before, you have a shiny side and a matte side. The shiny side is the side with the glue, and that is the side you're going to put down on your fabric and iron it to your fabric. I bought this because I want to practice constructing a bear out of a men's shirt. So I'm literally just using this for practice. I would never use this, something cheap as this. This was like £5 for 3 meters from Amazon, so that shows how cheap it is. I wouldn't use this for a product I was selling to somebody else because I want my bears to be like really good quality. So I use the quality interfacing and proper toy stuffing, so that when I'm advertising my bears, you know, I can say, you know, I'm using the best quality supplies to make them, and it does just make them look much better. So I think what I'm going to just go over now, I've gone through all my bears, is perhaps just talk about how you prep the pattern pieces. So like I say, I've got Melody Memory Bear, Funky Friends Factory. They come in A4 sheets inside the pattern. I have photocopied the master copies and put them away to the side, so that if I, you know, these paper copies, if you use these, they're going to get ripped, scribbled on, you know, they're not going to last, so you've always got your master copy to fall back on if you lose all these or they need replacing. Now what you can, you cut them all out, and what you can do is either put these down on your interfacing and draw around them, or you can put your pattern piece under your interfacing and you can trace them. I don't like tracing because I find the interfacing is a bit slippy and slides all over the place. So what I will do is put my interfacing down, probably on, you know, something like my workbench here. I will spread my interfacing out, weigh it down so it doesn't slide around. And I've transferred my pattern pieces onto a bit of pink card, kind of clashes a little bit with my wall. So I've completely transferred the pattern pieces, including all the letters and marking, onto a piece of card, and I've done both sides. So when you cut out your bear, your pieces, this will be 2 pieces of fabric because you've got your cut one side, cut one reversed. I don't know if I went over that with you earlier on. Most of the pattern pieces there are 2 of. So they'll say on them, cut 2, 1 reversed. So what that means is you cut 1 reversed, and that is your 2 pieces. So from this back, this is the back, you will, one template, you actually get 2 pieces of fabric to use. So what I do is just place it on the interfacing. I would lay this interfacing out flat. I'm just sort of putting it down to you. I would hold this, maybe weigh it down, and I will draw around it, and then flip it over to do my reverse, and I'll draw around it. You don't have to, but I transfer all the letters and markings that are on the pattern pieces. I transfer them onto my interfacing. I find that when you later come to sew your bear together, if you've got all the letters marked on your interfacing, you can follow the instructions in the pattern without referring back to all the pieces. So once you've cut them all out, you can put these pieces to the side and you don't really need to use them again, because in the instructions, the lady that writes them is very handily written, sort of, for example, on the back, sew the back together L to G. So if you've written L to G on your interfacing, you can follow the instructions without the need to keep referring back to these pattern pieces. So I would tidy them away after you've copied it. I tried tracing these or drawing these onto my interfacing without putting all the markings on, but when I came to put the bear together, some of the pieces are actually really a bit complicated to put together. For example, putting the arms on is quite tricky because you have to match up certain letters around the arm. So I certainly for a little while longer I'm going to carry on. It's quite time consuming, quite a lot of prep, but I think it is worth transferring everything that is written on the piece on your interfacing, because then when you come to actually sew the bear together, it doesn't take that long. I think the time consuming piece for this project is really preparing all of your interfacing and getting all your other bits and bobs together. So I probably should say actually, so you draw your pattern pieces onto your interfacing. I've drawn on here, you can see the letters and the little markings. When you cut your interfacing out, don't cut on the line that you've drawn, just cut a few millimeters, maybe 5 millimeters around. Doesn't have to be neat and accurate at this point. Just cut your pieces out, but don't cut them on the actual line that you've drawn. Talking about drawing lines, you really need to think about what type of pen you're going to use to draw on your interfacing. I've tried loads of different pens. I don't know why, but I just find a black biro is the only thing that I can find that draws easily on interfacing. I've drawn in red on this example just because I think you might be able to see it better. Don't use a fusion pen because when you iron it, all your markings will come off. I wouldn't use a water soluble pen because if steam comes out the iron, that's going to erase it all. I use a Bic, but you need to bear in mind if the fabric is going to be washed at any point, is the pen you're using potentially going to run into the fabric? My bears are not designed to be washed, and I don't think it's going to happen, so I just use a Bic. But you need to think about, you know, the consequences of what pen you're going to use when doing this. Then what you're going to do is iron your interfacing onto the wrong side of your fabric. So what you need to do is iron the glue side, which is, I don't think you can see on this cotton woven, you can't really see the glues clearly on, it's the cheap one. You want to put your glue side, which is your shiny, sometimes it's slightly rough because there's bobbles of glue, so your rough shiny side which is the glue side, you want to place that on the wrong side of your fabric and iron it down. All interfaces have different instructions of how to iron them on, so follow the instructions that come with your interfacing. You can always do a little practice piece on a scrap of the fabric you're using if you're not confident. Most of them, you just lay it on, you get the iron and you just place the iron on for about 8 seconds and then you move it 8 seconds. You don't really iron interfacing on, you more put the heat down, hold it, pick it up, move it down, hold it for 8 seconds. Once you've ironed all your pieces onto your fabric, this is now when you're going to cut out along your actual drawn line on all your pieces. I think you'll end up with about 24 pieces or 25 including a nose. I did count them once, but I'm not sure if I've got that right. So quite a lot. Again, in making the bear, the time consuming bit is preparing your interfacing, ironing it on and cutting it out. Actually sewing the bear together doesn't take that long when you're following the guide, because the instructions in the pattern are really good and they tell you exactly how to sew it all together in the right order. So it's all in the preparation. This one, for example, I don't know how long it took me, but it took me hours to do this. So that's your interfacing. So I've covered the eyes, the nose, the pattern pieces, the interfacing, the stuffing. I think that's probably, I haven't written any notes down of what I wanted to talk to you about today, but I think that's probably pretty much it. I hope that someone watching this finds this a little bit useful. I know when I first went to make this pattern, there aren't very many videos on YouTube specifically about the Melody Memory Bear pattern, and although there are lots of really helpful videos and there are a couple about the Melody Bear, for me, as a complete newbie, and when I went to Google videos of the pattern I purchased and I realised there weren't very many, I panicked. So now I've made loads of these bears for myself and for other people. I feel like I can share a little bit of what I've learnt. I am completely self-taught sewer. haven't done any courses or anything, so my way may not be the only way, it may not be the best way, but the way I've talked through things with you today is just how I've learnt along the way, the easiest method of doing things that work for me. If you want to give me any tips that you think might help me, please comment. If you have any questions, if I've forgotten to cover anything, please drop a comment. Any feedback welcome. Thank you for watching and for your support. That's really appreciated. In my next video, which I haven't done yet, I am hoping to do more of an actual practical making of a bear. I've got a man's dress shirt that I want to practice with, a different type of collar, so I'm hoping that I can film actually making that bear. That might be a good sort of follow on to this video, but I hope this helped. Thank you all for watching. Catch you soon.